Welcome to this first session on the Knowing God class, and I'm glad that you're taking the time to watch this video and read the book and work through some of the questions. Over the next few weeks, we're just going to be studying God, and as we get started with this first session, I just want to ask you a question. And so after I ask the question, if you would just pause the video and write out your response to it. The question is simply this, is why do you want to grow in your knowledge of God? What is it that's motivating you to study and to read and to reflect and to take some time out of your day to just learn more about who God is? So if you would, just pause the video and respond to that question for a few moments and then come back and we'll continue. You know, I think there's three reasons why we need to study God. Now there's more than that, but let me give you those three reasons. The first reason why I think it's worth your time is because the highest gift that God could have given us is Himself, and that's what He gave. God has given us Himself, and our hearts were created to be satisfied in Him. Our hearts were created to delight in who God is and in our relationship with Him. And so that's the first reason why I think the study of God and seeking to understand Him more is very valuable and worth your time. The second reason that I think that it's valuable is that as we study who God is, our faith is strengthened and our lives are transformed. Right? As we seek to understand and grow, and what you're going to find is as you're studying who God is, it's going to expand your understanding of God. It's going to expand your view of God and change it and challenge it. And that strengthens our faith as we come to understand who God is, and as we learn about God's faithfulness, as we learn about God's justice and His truthfulness and His love. It's going to strengthen your faith, but it's also going to change your life. I can remember when in college I had a class on who God is, knowing God, and it was by far the most life-changing experience, life-changing study I've ever done, just coming to understand and learn more about who God is, and it really challenged me and really changed my life, not just my faith, but transformed every aspect of my faith. And then the third reason is because what we believe about God, we live out in our lives. So if you believe certain things about God, if we see God with this kind of view, inevitably what happens is we live out what we believe about God in our lives. And so the stakes are very high, obviously, that what we believe about God, that it would be continually molded with reality, that what we would believe about God would be true, and it wouldn't just be based on who we'd like God to be or what we feel like God might be, but it would be based on who God says He is. And that ultimately what will happen is that will change the way we live. And so since that's so important, and since our beliefs about who God is affect so much the way that we live out our faith, it's really important that we have a right understanding, or at least we grow in our understanding of who God is. Now this study of who God is, it's not without its challenges, and so let me give you three challenges just to be aware of on this journey as you seek to grow and develop. The first challenge is that we can grow in our knowledge about God but not grow in our relationship with God. Right? We can grow in knowledge or facts about God but not necessarily grow closer in intimacy or in our walk with God. And ultimately this isn't about just information. This isn't about just getting more head knowledge, but it's about being drawn closer to God relationally. And so just like I could read about you in a newspaper, it's not the same as if me and you sat in a car together and went out and hung out all day together. There's something about being in the presence of another. There's something about not just reading about something that happened or about someone, right? I can read about this famous person, but if we went and hung out and got a burger together, two different kinds of knowledge. And so we're going to learn facts about God, but most importantly is that these facts and these experiences that you're going to have as you seek to grow in knowledge of God is going to drive you deeper in your relationship with God and drive you, give you a deeper desire to pursue Him. So that's the first danger. It's just information up here without it affecting the rest of your life. Another pitfall as we grow in knowledge is always the danger of pride. that we think because we grow in a little bit of knowledge is just this thing, I know more than this or whatever, that we would just be very careful to walk humbly as we grow in this knowledge. And that knowledge of God wouldn't puff up our heads, but would enlarge our hearts for God, right? So it's not about information. It's not about just getting a couple right answers. It's about being changed and being molded and being shaped and our hearts being opened up to God. One of the other pitfalls is that as we start to read, and you might just take off, is that information, as we've already talked about, can kind of become front and center. But the best thing that you can do as we study is to just spend time in prayer. And that you would be praying over the knowledge that you gain, and you'd be praying over what you're reading and asking God to give you wisdom and insight into the scriptures or into the books, into the articles that we'll be reading over these next few weeks. And so that's kind of a pitfall, is just kind of stop praying and just live up here in our intellectual, but just pray, meditate, reflect on the truth, and don't just let it be kind of just something that's just going on up in your brain, but meditate in on it and let it permeate all of your being, and make sure you're just spending time in prayer as you think about these things. Don't stop praying. Lastly, just last challenge, and this will lead us into our next session, is that there's mystery involved as we think about God. And I don't want to go too deep in that because that's our next section. So if you would, after this session's over, just think about what I've said. Start reading in chapter 2 of 20 Basic Beliefs Every Christian Should Know. And maybe just respond to something that I've said that has stuck with you. Just jot these things down and just reflect on them. And maybe even now just stop and pray and ask God to give you wisdom and guidance, and to open up your mind as you seek to learn and grow in your knowledge of Him.